All right, guys, we have a pretty full house, but I'd like to welcome you to the final day presser for the 2023 Academy Sports and Outdoors Bassmaster Classic presented by Toyota. It was an amazing, amazing event, and these gentlemen right here are a big part of why it was such an amazing event. For the record, I'm going to go ahead. Of course, Jeff Gustafson won with 42.7, followed very closely by Brian Schmitt with 40.14, and Scott Canterbury, 40 pounds, 1 ounce. Drew Benton, 38.3, John Cox, 36.13, and Brandon Lester with 35.10. So we're letting Gussie kind of decompress for the moment, enjoy a quick breath before he joins us. But in the meantime, these guys have a lot of information to share, so we're going to go ahead and start the questions for our 2 through 6 anglers. And I know this one's going to be asked. I'm going to go ahead and ask it on the front end. And let's go ahead and start with Brian, and we'll move down to Brandon. Let's talk about the gear that you use. That's going to be important to all of us. Our fans want to know it, so let's talk specifically about rod, reel, line, and lure. Starting with you.
Okay. So this week it was actually really simple on gear for me. It was a finesse deal. Shaky head was my main deal. It's an unnamed. Well, I had two. I had a jaw dropper shaky head from First Gen Fishing, and then I had an unnamed shaky head as well for the weedless approach. Missile baits, mini magic worm was my #1 bait. Green pumpkin, anything pretty much. I would just throw that on Fitzgerald shaky head rod, Fitzgerald stunner reel, 3,000, 12-pound P-line fluorocarbon to a 10-pound main braid from P-line. Bait fuel was a big deal. Just felt like I really had to leave it sit for the fish to bite. It was such a slow approach, a finesse approach, but I would let it sit. And the other deal was I was using the Floatzilla capsules to have my tail float up. It was a big deal there. So, it would get in there, and then eventually the tail would float up, and sometimes I'd get a bite doing that. But it was as far as gear, I was probably the most simple guy up here.
Fantastic. All right, Scott.
Yeah, I used, I power fished the whole time. I never caught a fish over about 4 foot deep. Probably caught them all in less than 3, but caught a few fish on the little balsa crankbaits, and then the rest of them all came on a 1/2 ounce dirty jig, green pumpkin, Matt Herron flipping jig. Started the week out with a pocket chunk on it, and it seemed like the fish just got to where they wanted zero action, and I had to change up trailers on it some, but everything. And then I caught some fish on a Nichols 1/2 ounce tandem Indiana spinnerbait. I caught some big ones on that, and I caught a few fish on a chatterbait. I would fill my limit with a chatterbait, and it was a white, and I had a net bait, little spanky on the back of the chatterbait and the spinnerbait to get the bites, and everything I used was soaked in bait fuel 100%. Used Halo rods, Ardent reels, Ardent Apex Grand reel, 7.3-1 on everything. Used my Signature Series rods from Ardent, used Titanium Series, and just about everything I had either had 1,700% fluorocarbon or 20-pound test, 100% fluorocarbon from P-line. So it was pretty simple for me. I kept it shallow, fished the way I like to fish, and just like I was at home. Caught them on wood or docks, and caught a few fish on rocks, but everything was super shallow.
All right, Drew, details.
So I started on smallmouth each morning, and I dropped a Dirty Jigs 3/8 ounce guppy head with a big bite Sensation Slim Minnow on there. I was using Lowrance Active Target to target smallmouth in the canal, and I was hoping to get 2 or 3 bites a day. Doing that, I was only able to catch 1 smallmouth each day to weigh in, which helped my day because then I would go largemouth fishing. And largemouth fishing, I spent similar to what Scott said, just fishing laydowns, any kind of wood cover. Had to have a little bit of watercolor, so I was throwing a spinnerbait and a Bagley crankbait a lot. The spinnerbait I was throwing was a Nichols Pulsator, 1/2 ounce single Colorado with a gold blade and chartreuse and white, and I put a white big bite Pro Swimmer on the back and 20-pound Seaguar and B.A.S.S with a Phoenix M1 rod, 7.2 heavy. And the crankbait I was throwing was a Pro Sunny B by Bagley. It's called Cooked Crawl. It's like a red crawl with an orange belly. And then I also flipped my DB Finesse jig by Nichols and a crawfish color with a quarantine crawl on the back of it as a trailer. But all those, except for the crankbait, were on 20. The crankbait was on 15-pound Seaguar and B.A.S.S. And the line I used, smallmouth fishing, I used smackdown braid to an 8-pound Tatsu leader, drop into those. And I used a 7-1 medium feather Phoenix rod, fishing those. So it's pretty simple. That four rod combo is pretty much everything that I caught my fish on.
All right, fantastic. All right, yeah, you can use that as a microphone. Oh, this one? Yeah, sure. All right, John, what you got?
All right, I wasn't nervous until now. This is probably, this is more nerve-wracking than any of the tournaments so far. But all week I pretty much kept it simple. I threw a Berkeley Fritz side the entire time. I tried some other stuff, but didn't really catch anything on it. And so I just kind of kept it in my hands, covered a lot of water, kind of fished some of the same places as last time we were here. And I had it on my signature series, Pro Series cranking rod that I have by Boo Garcia. It's like a 7.6 medium heavy. I had a winch reel with a 5.4 to 1 reel ratio, and I actually swapped to a 6.8 to 1 to speed it up a little bit because they weren't really reacting to it that well. And I had it on 15-pound 100% trialing 100% fluorocarbon, and that was about it.
Fantastic. All right, Brandon?
Two different deals for me. My main deal was going way back as far as I could get back in these drains that actually had a run-in back in the back of them. The ones that have run-ins in the back of them, the bait gets back there in the back, and I was targeting those with quarter-ounce lipless crankbait. I threw a couple different ones. Main one was a live target. It's a live target golden shiner, but it looks just like a shad because that's what those fish were eating, obviously. And I threw a striking red-eye shad a little bit. I did alternate between a chrome one and a red one. Most of my fish today and day one came on the chrome one. The second day, for whatever reason, they liked the red one. I think it was because the water got a little dirtier. Also had a little bit different deal going. I was fishing Main River Bluffs with a 1/2 ounce. I was flipping the same jig as Scott, 1/2 ounce Matt Herron, dirty jigs, flipping jig. I was flipping a brown one. I had a green pumpkin, just a chunk style trailer on it. And I was flipping Main Lake Bluffs with that. That's the same thing I did in the Classic here in 2019. You don't get many bites doing that, but it's a good way to catch some big ones. I did it a lot of the day today, and it just did not work. But I threw my Mustad Signature Series rods. On the jig, I threw the 7.6 heavy. On the trap, I threw the 6'10" medium. The trap, I threw 12-pound Vicious 100% fluorocarbon. On the jig, I threw 20-pound Vicious crystal clear fluorocarbon. That's pretty much it.
All right, perfect. All right. And this year we had over 400 credentialed media covering this event, which was incredible. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the gallery for any questions that we might have. Louis. Yeah, and thank you, Louis. The question was, what happened to the shallow bite? Why did it not materialize? Scott, looks like you're ready to answer that one.
I mean, I fished shallow the whole time. It was pretty good, actually, but the key to me was every day, I mean, it's all bass fishing is in an area location, but every day it was because of the presence of bait fish in an area. Every time I got in an area shallow that had bait fish present, the fish would be there biting. But today, the water was just backing up real hard. The water was coming up, flooding into the pockets really, really bad. And I don't know, I love power fishing. I love fishing shallow, but I don't like rising water much, and I think that affected it a lot. The temperature, it may have got hot a little bit too quick, too, and it just put them in a little funk because they want to go spawn now.
John, I know you were shallow the whole time. Anything to add to that?
What I noticed today was it just seemed like where I was catching a lot of them yesterday, the wind was like pushing all the bait in to that area, and it was kind of really condensing them in a really small area. Today they were in like a 2-3 football field area out there busting on bait, scattered and stuff. And I wish then I had, the active target or whatever and could have trolled out there and tried to pick some of them off. But I don't, so I didn't catch anything really. So.
Good. Anybody have anything to add to the shallow question? All right, very good. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
Did the electronics play a part in how many fish? Not how many fish you saw.
Good question. So the question is, we're not going to have John answer this one, obviously, but did electronics, what did electronics play in this particular classic? You want to start with Brian? Well, let's hand him that microphone.
I weighed every fish using my Garmin Live Scope, either throwing at a fish I saw near a piece of structure or throwing at a piece of structure that I could see out in front with my, with my Live Scope, and I would actually watch a fish come up or, go down on my bait. So all 15 of mine were with live sonar.
All right, Scott?
No, I mean, sea mapping, I did a lot of map study, but I didn't catch any forward facing.
Just the smallmouth in the mornings. I use forward facing in 2D, and then after that, largemouth fishing, I didn't use it.
All right, and Brandon?
C-map was a big deal for me. I went in and I shaded my C-map in 2-foot intervals. That way I could really see what was going on in the backs of those drains, and that was a big key for me this week. I was looking for the ones that had like a defined little deal going back in the back of them, because I knew those are the ones that actually had a run-in the back of them. So C-map, yes. As far as forward-facing and all that, no, not so much this week.
And they get a question online from our friends at OutdoorLife.com. Curious about the crazy weather patterns. You had some cold weather, you had warm, you had a lot of wind one day. How exactly did the variations in weather affect y'all's ability to be on the stage?
The water level, I mean, more than anything, I don't care about the cold, rain, or wind. The water level's probably the biggest deal that changes the fishing here. When the water's down, the fish, are a little more predictable, and then as you get this slow rise, they start to spread out and get unpredictable until it gets full pull. But I don't know about you guys, but like the water level was the biggest variable this week.
Okay. Scott, any additional thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, the weather definitely affected us during practice. I mean, it was super cold. Like the last day of practice, our guides were freezing up at 11:30 in the day. So, it didn't affect the fish that much. I was wanting it to be cold. It got really cold, and there was already some fish shallow. I knew there was because it'd been warm here for a couple of weeks. But that warming trend is what I was looking for. I fished a lot of this tournament off of places that I never caught a bass in practice. I fished a lot of stuff that I marked in practice and never made a cast at and caught fish off of it. So I was wanting that warming trend, and I was wanting the shallow bite to win the tournament, and it didn't do it. But I think the warming trend really helped the shallow bite.
Drew?
I feel like the wind for me, especially throwing the spinnerbait, was really critical, and the lack of it today really hurt that for me. I threw it a ton and, watched it come back to me in places that I shouldn't have been throwing it. But definitely the wind, I needed a lot more wind than we had today.
Yeah, I mean, practice, it was so cold and miserable, and I only had one day where I actually caught anything. The other days I caught nothing. So I feel like it's a miracle that I made it this far. But for the weather warming up, I mean, that's what I look forward to any of those tournaments where, it's that warming trend like that. I mean, it was all perfect. I just don't know why today they kind of went stagnant on us and quit moving, at least the areas I was fishing.
Brandon?
Yeah, I was actually kind of hoping we would have got more rain than we got Saturday night, just for the fact that it would have dirtied up the water some more, and as shallow as a lot of us were fishing, I think it would have gotten easier to fool some of those fish up shallow. I was really amazed today how quickly some of that water cleared up, basically overnight. But if it would have stayed dirtier, it definitely would have helped my deal for sure. But yeah, crazy weather all week. But I mean, that's typical pre-spawn fishing this time of year. You just kind of got to go out and deal with it every day. Every day it changes.
Perfect. Yeah, Dano.
Kind of for Brian and Scott, I mean, you're sitting here having had great days, both of you, the last 2 days especially. Is there
Yeah, so the question is,
you could, or is there any one thing?
yeah.
No.
So for the folks at home, the question are you looking back? Is there any one thing you could have done different, knowing how challenging it was for our champion, that could have put you in that winner's seat?
Not for me. I mean, I did everything I could do. I think I only really missed one fish all week, and I missed it on day one. It cost me, and it would have helped me on day one, but I made the exact same pitch on day two and caught it, and it helped me a lot more that day than it would have on day one. And I'm pretty sure it was the same fish. I actually think some of those fish were already setting up to spawn. I mean, a lot of the fish were acting that way, and they would bump it, and you not catch them, pitch back in and catch them. So I wouldn't change anything.
Brian, any regrets?
No regrets. So, of course, after you see Gussie only has 2, you're like, oh man, it could have been, so different. But, when it's your time, it's your time. And like, I've been fortunate to have some good events, and some special things have to happen. And like day one, I mean, I had an opportunity at a very special day. I had some just magical bites that on this fishery, like 19, 20 pounds of largemouth is giant. And to have that kind of opportunity, but, even if I do catch that going into the day, that's still not enough. But then seeing what Gussie did, it's bittersweet, but I wouldn't change anything I did this week. And, Gussie was the best all week.
Fantastic. Guys, we got about time for one more question. Any other questions from the gallery before Gussie gets here? I know he's on his way. Yeah, Louis, one more.
Do any of you wish, or did you try smallmouth fishing? Or in hindsight, do you wish you would have tried fishing strictly for smallmouth?
Good question. Yeah, so the question is, anybody, we got a bunch of largemouth guys up here. Anybody wish they would have gone specifically for smallmouth?
I felt that after what Gussie did last time we were here, the attention was going to be heavy on that. I didn't think it could be one again doing that. I purposely ignored anything to do with smallmouth. If I caught one that kept, I would have waded in, but that was my mentality, to just totally forget that and do my own thing. So,
Scott?
100%. I just fished. I mean, I fished my strengths the whole time, and my strength's not fishing for smallmouth like Gussie, so no, I didn't. I tried it one day and practiced to power fish for smallmouth, cranking and jerking, and I caught like 8, but I didn't have any keepers, so I never went after it again.
Drew?
I thought, being that it was March and, a month later than when he dominated with smallmouth, I didn't think it would hold up for 3 days. And he won, but it was rough today. And had the largemouth deal panned out, I thought I had a decent game plan for that, doing both, fishing for smallmouth in the morning and largemouth in the afternoon, but just wasn't meant to be. But that's just the way it goes.
And John?
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have went and did some smallmouth fishing, but I probably won't, but I don't know. It looked like fun.
All right, Brandon?
So the first day of practice, I went all the way up Tellico as far as you can possibly go. I'd never seen it up there, but I was just looking for a needle in a haystack. And it's the Bassmaster Classic. You do that kind of thing here. Didn't work out. I got some bites up there, but I didn't catch anything big. So then I got back down on Loudon, and I kind of started getting some bites. And, much like Scott, I grew up fishing the Tennessee River. We grew up fishing a lot of the same kind of stuff. And I want to fish shallow this time of year. So that's what I did.
All right, fantastic, guys. Hey, one more round of applause for 2 through 6. Amazing tournament, guys. Congratulations. Made a very, very special event. Y'all are welcome to step off the stage now, because I believe we have our champion about to step in. And the man we've all been waiting for, our 2023 Bassmaster Classic champion, Jeff Gustafson. Set that baby down. Congratulations. Let's get you sitting right over here. Let's get one of these out of the way so make you comfortable. We're going to have your microphone right here. Yep. Right on, stuff up there. You there. Good job, Gussie.
Yeah, thanks, boys.
Hey, Canadian in the house. Matter of fact, Ken Duke, Bass historian, told me something very, very interesting. You may know this by now, but the very first Canadian to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic was a man by the name of Hank Gibson in 1990. He finished dead last. Now we're, what is that, 30-something years later, we have a passel of amazing Canadian anglers, and Jeff Gustafson just won the biggest trophy in bass fishing. So congratulations, our second ever international angler, our very first, of course, from the amazing country of Canada. So congratulations on that. With that, we're going to go ahead and start our Q&A. With the first person, I know we're going to go gallery for. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to do what we did with the other guys. Let's go ahead and detail bait, line, rod, reel that you used to win this Bassmaster Classic.
Okay, yeah, no, same as last time pretty much. A Z-Man, 4-inch Z-Man scented jerk shad, smelt color was what I caught most of them on, and a 3/8 ounce smeltinator jig head. It's got a 2-aught Gamakatsu hook in it. NRX Plus 872 rod. It's a 7.3 medium action. Favorite spinning rod. A Shimano Stella reel, 3000 size, 10-pound Power Pro, and a 10-pound Shimano Mastiff fluorocarbon leader. So that's some new fluorocarbon that's going to come out this summer, and got to use it for a few weeks. Good stuff. But yeah, that was what I caught all my fish on last time, and all my fish on this tournament too. So, yeah, it's if you're fishing this place, you better get some of those in your boat if you want to catch a smallmouth.
And now we all know how to pronounce Shimano when we go to Canada,
Yeah, okay.
so,
Yeah.
which is super cool.
You can make fun of my accent later. And then also, I mean, the Humminbird Mega Live, I mean, I couldn't have done what I was doing without that. Incredible technology. Like, I expected to be able to get on top of the fish, drop my bait down to them, and catch them. And they just got so hard to catch. I had to sort of see them out in front of me and pitch my bait and swim it over their head, because it's like once they knew the boat was there, it was almost game over. And I mean, I got some to come up under the boat the last couple days, but they just got like crazy hard to catch. And I don't know, I'm sure a combination of the pressure and the weather today. And I mean, they're, you know, in a few more days, they're probably going to be gone. They're going to the bank, and they spread out, and you'll never, you know, they get a lot harder to catch. But if the tournament would have been last weekend, it would have been a lot easier for me to do what I was doing. But I can't believe it all worked out.
And a question I'm dying to ask personally, so I have the microphone, I'm going to go ahead and ask it. With 2 fish in the live well, and you're fishing the final day of the Bassmaster Classic, what was going through your mind, and did you think you had lost it?
Yeah, no, I never, it was a horrible ride back. It was an hour boat ride, so obviously, you know, did that every day. Good thing I had the Pro XS on there. But no, the ride back was horrible. I never thought I didn't think I'd be in the top 5. I mean, like, you know, these guys are so good, and they always catch fish. And yeah, it was from, you know, pretty early this morning. I had you know, this was the tightest thing. Like, it was a rough day. It feels amazing now, but it was yeah, it was a struggle. I fished hard, but I mean, it wasn't the funnest day of fishing I've ever had. That's for sure.
All right, we're going to open it up to the galley. Yes.
What makes you so successful on Tennessee?
All right, I'll repeat the question, Jeff, so our folks at home can hear. But the question was, what makes you, a Canadian, so successful on the Tennessee River?
I think it's more just like the technique that I was using, and it's something that I do a lot. I've caught thousands of bass and walleyes, you know, doing that, using those jerk shads, doing the same thing at home. And you know, prior to coming here last time, I'd never got to do that in, like, you know, 7 or 8 years of fishing pro tournaments in the South. I'd never got to do that anywhere, really. And I was waiting for the opportunity, and it worked out. And you know, coming here for this event, obviously this tournament's different than a regular Elite Series event in that there's no points. You can kind of take a little bit more risk. And I spent like a couple hours last Saturday, largemouth fishing, but I knew I was going to focus on smallmouths. And you know, when we got here, the canal where I caught them all last time, there was a lot of fish there, probably more than there was last time, but it got pounded on by everybody. I mean, it just got a lot of pressure, and I realized, you know, at first my plan was just going to be, I'm going to fish in here again. I spent like a lot of my first 2 days of practice fishing in there, and just figured I'd learn it better than everybody else, and that would be my program. But I realized that there's no way you're going to be able to win the tournament in here. They're just way too hard to catch. And if you watched my, you know, the live stuff the last few days, I mean, I just constantly fish coming up to your bait. Very hard to catch. So I just went into Teleco, and it took hours and hours, and I found a few spots. But that was my last 2 days of practice, just exclusively sitting at the console of my boat, idling, like every piece of structure I could find. And if you could find a little bit of rock, then there's probably going to be some smallmouths around it. And the other thing was, like, it was very time consuming, because you wouldn't, like a lot of the other Tennessee River lakes, you can idle around and see the fish, drive over them, see them. These things were very tight to the bottom, and you wouldn't really necessarily see them idling over them. You almost had to drop a bait down there, and then they'd show themselves. And that was something that I figured out last time, and it was pretty key, I think. And that probably is why, like, guys didn't find a lot of these fish.
Excellent. Sure. Are you moving to Tennessee, Gussie?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be somewhere, you know, not in a city, you know. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, somewhere along the Tennessee River, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah, what does it mean to you to be the first one to hoist a trophy from Canada?
I'm pretty good buddies with Chris and Corey, but I mean, they're very good, exceptional anglers, and you know, I overall results, it's hard to keep up with those guys. So it's awesome to get this one before one of them got it. That's probably the most special part.
Very good. All right. Yes, David.
Yeah. Yeah, so I use the 4-inch bait like 90% of the time, but in the canal, they make a 3.75 jerk shad as well, and it's a Z-Man one also, and I use that in the canal, just thinking, like, as hard as it was to get a bite, and I dropped it a lot the last couple days, and it just, you know, they denied that too, you know, but.
Yes, next question.
Yeah, so the jig head, Gamakatsu hook, important, and then a 90-degree eye, and you want to keep the knot, you know, at 90 degrees. I'm constantly, every time I get a bite or, you know, set the hook or anything, you got to check that knot. If it slides forward, the bait sits like this, and the big thing with you know, I said it on stage, but the Z-Man plastic's buoyant, and that just really promotes, like, the bait being horizontal and natural looking in the water. 604. Yeah, it's the heavier gauge hook, and that's important. That's the only hook I use for any kind of tournament fishing. And you know, the problem if you use a lighter hook, like, we're not allowed to, you could use lighter hooks, but we can't use nets. So, you know, a big fish, I'm going to grab it, but, like, if they come up all wild and hot and they kind of want to jump, I'm going to try and boat flip them. And that, if you use too light of a wire hook, then you're going to open it up.
Sure.
No, a friend of mine at home makes them. Yeah, Lake of the Woods Sports.
All right, very good. Next question. Yes, here.
Between the 2021 event and this event, what was the difference in the current level moving through that area, and if it was different, did it affect the way the fish were biting?
Well, I think the more current's better. Like, I spent the last hour in there today, and they were just very lazy. There wasn't much current, and you know, like last time I found that spot, like, the last few hours of practice. So I didn't know going into the tournament if it was even a good spot or not, and then it turned out it was the best place on the lake, you know. but my only experience there was in the tournament last time, and then seemed like there was more current earlier in the week, and I kind of thought it was wind driven, but like yesterday the wind was really gassing in there, and there still wasn't that much. So it must be more go by the dam, like whatever. And I just like, I didn't even look at the weather really the last few days. I mean, I'm going fishing, and you got to go figure it out. This is my game plan, and that's kind of how I fish this event. But I think in that canal, like if there's more current, it's definitely better.
All right, we're going to have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. So let's
Then we're
go.
going to party.
we got a party to go to, man. All right, so we'll go 3 more questions. Steve Bowman.
I can't wait to give you a hug.
The trophy is the trophy.
Yeah.
And that trophy has not changed a lot over here, but that one is different.
Yeah, I see Ray Scott's name on there. Huge.
What does Ray Scott usually is the recipient of the first Ray Scott trophy? Never mind Canada and all that snowy country.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, I've been a fan of Bassmaster since I was a little kid and watched it on TNN. We got that up in Canada, actually. and yeah, no, man, it's incredible. I'm really at a loss for words that this happened, and I can't wait to let it sort of sink in. And but like I'm looking at some of the names on here, and it's like a lot of the legends in this sport that we all love their names are on this trophy, and it's crazy.
Yes, right here.
How did your boat and your electronics help you accomplish the win today?
Yeah, so my boat, a Lund 2075 Pro V Bass. Yeah, it's my office and love it. Big deck, big storage. Any kind of conditions, I can go fish wherever I want to fish. Obviously made a big long run, so it's kind of stressful, but I think it's been since 2017 I've ran that Pro XS 4-stroke, and I've never had an issue once ever. And knock on wood, but I don't even think about it. You go wherever you need to go to catch fish, and then obviously like the Humminbird gear was vital. Like I couldn't have done what I was doing without Mega Live, and spot lock too. I mean, that's probably, there's an argument now with forward-facing sonar, but before that, spot lock's the greatest invention that I think's come along for fishing, for not only bass but like everything. I do a lot of guiding, and growing up doing a lot of guiding, and like if you want to take a picture, take a fish off, bait a hook, you just boom, spot lock, you stay wherever you want. And every time I caught a fish this weekend, I'd run up to the front, boom, spot lock, because get the fish in the live well. And a lot of times you'd have followers, and you could just drop, I'd be able to just drop my bait back down and not lose them again. And the first day I caught fish doing that, and then it was like I got one, and they smartened up right up, the last couple days. But
All right, and last question, Mr. Twiggs.
We got back up Mr. Bowman here for a second. Just 1 second. Congratulations, and Bass has created a global stage.
Yep.
To follow the best anglers on the planet.
Yep.
Proven that you're that. And on that trophy, you'll see a fellow from 2004.
Yep.
But you hoisted that trophy for 40 million fans in the country and over your head. How'd that feel?
Like my phone has been vibrating in my pocket since I got in here. Yeah, it's special. Like I can't believe it. It's it's the highlight of my life right there, and my fishing career by a million times. It's and it's the winning the tournament's awesome, but it's just I have so much respect for all the guys I fish against and all the guys that have done it before me, and I know how hard it is to win a 20 boat tournament. It's never mind this one. So it's if I never catch another fish again, I could be happy. I'm gonna, but.
All right, with that, let's give him one more round of applause. Our 2023 Bassmaster Classic champion, Jeff Gussie Gustafson. Now it's time.